Hello, welcome to a new episode of Sounding Off on Soccer. It's been a while since we've been on the Sounding Off on Soccer podcast. High school soccer season has certainly had something to do with that. We've been real busy. When podcasts we have recorded in the past week or two have been the Kids on the Pitch podcast, which for good reason, because the high school season is winding down to the WPL finals are now. So it's great to see the District 7 Pittsburgh area finals are taking place at Highmark Stadium. And so this past Saturday, when the Pittsburgh Riverhounds clinched their fourth place standing in the Eastern Conference playoffs, that meant that the high school playoffs, which usually take place almost every year, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, has now been stretched to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and 2 games a day. But that'll give some room. There'll be 2 games in the morning on Saturday at Highmark Stadium. The last two, I believe it'll be girls 2A and boys 3A classifications will play their finals on Saturday, and then that'll give the Riverhounds staff, crew, give them an opportunity to get the stadium ready for the big, and that's why we're here on Sounding Off on Soccer podcast, the big, the big playoff match for the Riverhounds, as they'll be taking on none other than Hartford Athletic. This is a when this is really something. A lot of storylines, to I don't even know where to start. Of course, bottom line here is that Pittsburgh had a really good, strong finish to the season. There was a hiccup in Miami, of course. They did lose in the second half, gave up unanswered goals. But besides that second half in Miami, this team has won 4 out of 5. They're playing well. And of course, they've gone through a lot. This is a team that's gone through a lot. Of course, things really got a little wonky in terms of the season the last time these two teams met, Pittsburgh and Hartford. We saw an incident, Danny Griffin involved in that, and of course the USL's investigation kind of put that to bed, at least as far as both clubs being able to just kind of go about their business. But I'm going to bring on a special guest. We can talk more about that. I'm excited to have Joe Malfa, who is a voice of soccer across the United States landscape. Joe is, you'll see him on the MLS telecast, you'll see him on USL telecast, you'll see him throughout. I believe he's done college as well. He's a familiar face if you watch a lot of soccer, especially on the Pittsburgh side, because if he's Riverhounds games, but also Pitt as well. So we'll see. Let's get Joe on here, and we'll talk more about what I was just starting to get to in terms of some of this big matchup this weekend at Highmark Stadium Saturday, Riverhounds versus Hartford FC. All right, this is John Krysinsky back here at Pittsburgh Soccer Now. I have Joe Malfa here. Joe, it's great to have you on the Sounding Off on Soccer podcast. I kind of make this my annual tradition. Whenever the Hounds have a playoff match, I like to talk to somebody from the broadcast team. And I've seen you, covering a lot of different games across the spectrum, U.S. soccer. But it's great to have you here.
No, I appreciate you having me on it. It's always a fun time of year where, for us personally, pulling back the curtain, it's like the end is coming, which is kind
Yeah.
of bittersweet because we're gonna blink now and we're gonna be seeing a team lift a trophy in 3 weeks, and you'll miss it. But also, this is the best time of year because these are the games that you live for and enjoy doing the most and look forward to the most. Because in theory, like sure, there's been duds historically, but in theory, these are the best games and the most intense and most fun games you're going to do all year. So we're at that time now where it's a weird spot, but it's always something to look forward to every year.
Yeah, it was interesting. We were interviewing Robbie Mertz after the match on Saturday, and he talked about keeping emotions in check and all that. We can talk about that in a second, but I'm just wondering from your standpoint, is it ever, when you I say step foot into the booth, but you turn the mic on, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm sure there's nerves and handling emotion, especially when a game gets just to a certain point. I'm sure there's a way that you kind of have to kind of manage that on some level.
Yeah, it's always fun, and like obviously it just comes with experience, but like the whole notion of I guess trying to channel all that then through the microphone where again, like those are the big moments that you live for. And the way I always look at it too, like it means something to the players and to the teams where it's a moment and the fans, of course, like it's a moment that they're gonna, in theory, if there's a 90th minute winner, like it's a moment they're gonna play over and over and over again. Like so you want to do it for them. You're also getting caught up in it because you're enjoying it yourself. I've been doing this now professionally out of college for I guess this is my sixth season. Yeah, shoot, that's weird to say, but I guess my sixth, yeah, 2020, the part COVID season, and one, two, three, four, yeah, sixth season. And it's early on, like looking back on some of those moments compared to now, there were definitely moments where, like, to your point, like I found myself getting caught up in it and like just almost just like watching as a fan who's like, oh wait, no, I'm supposed to be the one talking right now. Um, and now it's kind of, I guess, second nature, but it's a definite challenge. It's fun. It's what you live for, and you would love to be a part of.
I absolutely enjoy it. As a reporter, I have my routines, and I have my routines in terms of reporting. And so a few times over the years, I've kind of gotten called in as the reserve of the reserve. So when the legends of Paul Child or Gene Klein couldn't be in the booth, they asked me, and I actually did the playoff Bethlehem Steel Hounds
Okay.
playoff game. So if you're going back and thinking about the Brendan Burke connection, that match, Matt Geica and I were on the call for that match, and it was a crazy first ever playoff match at Highmark Stadium, and the atmosphere was crazy. But Bethlehem Steel and Brendan Burke pulled that one out. So maybe that's a good segue to this match. You have the Hounds, you have Hartford. As I said at the outset of this podcast, there's so many storylines that I don't even know where to start for us. We're going to have a lot of fun with the next few days. But for you, what jumps out in terms of this matchup?
First things first, I love the contrast of styles where I guess it's um so I guess we start by saying this. Like every week we have an opportunity to talk to the coaches and for our personal prep. It's not public,
Right,
not for the whole media, just for us and anything they say, it's on the record, but we just can't say it until in game. I bring that up because we haven't had those conversations yet. So
right,
any opinion that I give you it's fully mine without that subconscious coloring of those conversations with the coaches, which is I'm glad that we're recording this today as we are because those conversations happen tomorrow. So I didn't want to subconsciously have their opinions on the game influence my initial naked opinions coming in. That said, answering your question, for me, it's just a contrast of styles. I love a game where it's like, you know, okay, it's a high octane attack against just a top notch sound defense, or vice, whatever the case is. Like whenever
right,
you have that sort of oil and vinegar best on best, and that's what this is. Acknowledging that over the last couple of games, there's maybe been some minor tweaks in the way the Hounds have played. And we had a chance to talk to Rob Vincent last week. Gary Bailey and I were on the call for the match against Phoenix. And there was something interesting Rob mentioned that we used on the air. He said, look, everything else aside right now, just the way Bob Lilly sees the game versus the way I see the game, having coached together so long, there are plenty of similarities. But everybody, even though they might have the same broad strokes view of the game, is going to have finer details they see differently. Bob has always been about the defensive side. Rob was a terrific striker back in the day for you guys. So he sees it more through a striker's mindset. And it reminded me of what Danny Dichio in Detroit said when he took over last year from Trevor James, where Trevor James was all about defense. Danny Dichio was a striker in his day. So he's taken kind of that old way, that's still foundation, but also tried to make it his own in the attack. That's what I feel like right now for this Pittsburgh team. So it's a little bit different, maybe just these last couple of games, but by and large, stout defensive team. Pittsburgh all about being buttoned up back there, and a Hartford team that just wants to get out and go. But also couple that with the environment at Highmark, the smaller dimensions. Maybe they can't quite go. So how do they adapt? Like it's going to be such an interesting chess match, which is getting down in the weeds and nerdy. But like that's what I'm looking forward to. Again, you get into the player storylines, the coach storylines, the Hounds playoff history, which hasn't been great. Hartford's
right.
first playoff game. We could go down the list of all the storylines as you mentioned. But which stands out to me like just big picture from the jump contrast of styles. Curious to see how it plays out in that chess match.
Well, that's a really good, interesting observation about Rob Vincent. Of course, he's someone I've been close to and covered very closely back in the when he was playing in Pittsburgh. He's on the cover of my book, so Miracle on the Mon. But I find it very interesting that I think the first week I think he was shepherding kind of things through. But I think once they had a first full week of preparation, I think there were some wrinkles. And I do think that in terms of being open-minded and creativity, as far as giving the midfielders a little bit more freedom to express. I think there's a little bit of that because Robbie thrived in that role that kind of I think he recognizes the strengths of every player a little bit differently. So Robbie Mertz is not the same player that Rob Vincent was.
Right.
Different skill sets, but it's still that freedom, I think, to do some things and but also play within this team concept. And they are still very organizationally sound. And I think that's all Bob Lilly, a lot of the principles that these players have taken from an intense year of playing for Bob Lilly, which is where it goes with the territory. But I don't mean to overanalyze. I
No,
was
no,
just
no.
kind of like just kind of adding something
No,
to
it's something
that.
else that I was thinking of too. I mean, it just again, I don't pretend to say I can see the game the same way that my colleagues Devin Kerr, Ricky Lopez Espin, Gary Bailey, all the ones you hear me on the call with. I don't
Yeah.
see it through the same eye they do, but I'm also not like some folks in my chair where maybe they didn't play the game and they just put the headset on. I played through high school. I watch a ton of it. I try to analyze it from a tactical perspective the best I can too, and I know the game. And but again, prefacing that by saying maybe Devin could come on and tell me that I'm full of it, but the way I've seen it these
Yeah,
last
I don't.
couple of games with to your point, the overall structure is the same. The nuances are different. Like Danny Griffin
Yeah.
is a player for me where under Bob, his first look and his first tendency and his first responsibility was back. Under Rob, it feels
Right.
like his first look, his first tendency, his first responsibility is to jump up and help a little bit. So he has that freedom to go forward. Maybe it's the same structure, it's the same formation, it's the same general tactics, but some of those little split second decisions you have to make in the moment, where some of those guys, Robbie, Dan, like those guys in those positions would have
Mhm.
looked back first. Now they can be more forward thinking. And even the wingbacks, obviously under Bob, the wingbacks get forward a ton. But even these last couple of games under Rob, it's felt like even more. Where Luke Biasi last game against Phoenix, he was the best
Yeah.
player on the field for me. Like a couple of the moves he made and what he did.
Yeah.
Where under Bob, his first tendency is to go back. Rob feels like he's letting him go a little bit more. So same structure, same formation, same general principles, but just flipping the switch from maybe making sure you're on top of your defensive responsibilities to no, you can go. You have a little more freedom to go. That's the little switch I'm noticing with Rob at the helm right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great observation. And I think that kind of that's what we've all been like watching closely to see kind of where it is. But the other piece for me was the way that they've closed out these games. Phoenix was a little bit of an outlier
Yeah.
because no, they didn't get that early lead. They've been getting early leads, but you saw, and I think in terms of how they're finishing, being able to get that second goal, I think that was the key something that they haven't been able to do a lot this year.
Yeah, for sure. And that Phoenix game was an anomaly. Gary and I mentioned it on the air, and we we wanted to set the scene for it. We hoped it didn't go that way. We were both pretty sure there was going to be a point where both teams looked at that and said, "You want a 0-0? Sure, let's take a
Yeah.
0-0 because it was good for both." And I think the last 20 minutes of that game, especially assuming the Pittsburgh bench had word that Louisville was beating Hartford, um, I think that was something where they were like sort of unspoken, like, "Hey, you want to just get out of here and take our point each and make sure we're both good? Yeah, let's do it." So I think that was part of it too, where you can't really equate the end of that Phoenix game to how those other couple of games ended. But I agree with you. There's a little bit more of a killer mentality right now.
Sure. What about Hartford? What about the challenge Brendan Burke has right now? They, as a team, they played really well. I mean, I thought at one point, I think Devin Kerr probably would agree. I think he said this too. Like at one point, they might have been other than Charleston, Louisville, in terms of their form, as good as anybody in this league. But then the loss seems like the loss to the Hounds. Then they kind of bounced back a little bit, but then now they finished. Their finish hasn't been great. Just your thoughts overall on Hartford.
Yeah, they lost the last couple. I don't I don't think it really changes my opinion of them. In fact, I think the way that Louisville game went for the little bit of it that I was able to catch, it sort
Yeah.
of reinforced my opinion of them. I don't want to go too far down the line here, but obviously they've got to get through Pittsburgh first, and the bracket's got to go the way the bracket's got to go. But it almost if we get to a point where there is another Hartford Louisville game, that's one of the teams that I think Louisville would have to watch their backs on because they can play with them. And
Hmm.
it's funny, it's totally separate example, but going back to the Miracle on Ice team, that they played a scrimmage against the Soviet or a friendly against the Soviets in Madison Square Garden a couple weeks prior and got shellacked. But like the shellacking came in the first and second periods, and then the third period they scored and they've kept it tight. And that kind of gave them the confidence then to go do what they did when the time came.
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
looking back on it, we got to again.
Yeah.
Hartford's got to get through Pittsburgh. Hartford's got to get to that Louisville game. I feel like if Hartford got to Louisville, we could look back on that Louisville game as like, oh, they hung with them. They gave them all they could handle. So to I guess just pivoting off your point, while they ended on 2 losses, that last loss specifically against Louisville, I actually had the opposite view where I thought it was a great showing result, even though it goes down as a 1-0 loss on the road in Louisville. That's pretty much been the fate every team has met this year. But to your point, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's for as hot as they were, it's jarring to see 2 losses to end the year. But like I don't think it changes my overall opinion on them. Loaded team from where they were when the season started and the injuries that they were dealing with to
Yeah.
where they are now. The ability to withstand the loss of Momo Jang, not loss, but obviously sale onto MLS by then supplementing that by bringing in Haji Berry, a Golden Boot winner in this league, a top player in this league, reuniting him with Brendan Burke and with Mishi Galina, famously quoted Brendan Burke back in that 2022 season when they were struggling mightily defensively, Hartford. He said something to the effect of, well, I'll just win game 4-3. It's that same nucleus now of Haji, Mishi, and Brendan in charge. So kudos to them what they've done all season long. It's been fun to watch along. I had their game um, when they pounded New Mexico. I can't remember if it was 3-0 or 4-0. No, I think it was 4-0. Right before then, they started to pick up their first couple of wins of the season where they'd beaten Loudon. They had gone toe to toe with, and I think tied Louisville, tied a couple other teams. And then they had that big coming out party against New Mexico. And then everything from there just boom. And going into that game, Brendan Burke said, like, look, we could turn this around. We feel it's right there. A lot of coaches will say that. Saying it and then doing it are two very different things. And they did it after that day. So it's been fun to watch them all year long.
Yeah, I mean, the only question is like August was just they were lights out.
Right.
Like, they were like, was it like 5 wins and two draws or one draw? They didn't lose. They were just lights out. And sometimes we've seen this. We've seen some of Bob's teams, lights out to finish the season. And Rob Vincent talked about this the other day, Saturday, said that in terms of of last year, they felt like they put so much into the strong finish that when they got to play, and they had to go play Charleston
Yeah.
at Charleston. So like to be able to hit the reset button for the Riverhounds in a weird way, these last few weeks, and then now head into the playoffs with a home match. I know there's like you said, the history with that the Riverhounds have in the playoffs, and all of that will be looming. And but just I just think that's an interesting storyline about with this match.
Yeah, just the way these two teams came in could not be more different to your point. Hartford was hot as can be and then lost a couple, although they lifted a trophy in that span too on the road in Sacramento.
Right.
Pittsburgh has the coaching change, but then plays well after the coaching change. So it's interesting. It hasn't been a linear path for either. Um, I mean, really all season. Like there's been plenty
Yeah.
of ups and downs for Pittsburgh throughout the year. They had that lull, they came back up again, they lulled again, they came back up again. So it hasn't been a linear path. I love again, just like you said, this is a game dripping with storylines. Like it's literally no playoff history on the Hartford side versus
Right.
a very haunting playoff history on the Pittsburgh side. So like what wins out? Is it the no experience? Is it the poor experience? Something's got to give. The one wild card that I will say, and I'm curious again, like I mentioned earlier, we haven't had these conversations with the coaches yet, and I'm curious to ask Brendan about it tomorrow, and I'm sure I'll get an answer that I'll use on the air come 6:30 on ESPN Plus on Saturday. I'm curious to ask him how valuable and how much their Jägermeister Cup run and winning it on the road in
Yeah.
Sacramento, how valuable that is for them now, because they're going to have to be on the road in this game.
Yeah.
If we are to assume chalk in the other games, they would then be going on the road again, probably to Louisville in the next round. So how much does that experience and winning a trophy at Sacramento help them now? They could be a team that you look at in hindsight if they rattle off a couple of wins and say, well, you know what? They were battle tested. It started in that Jaeger Cup run. It carried into Pittsburgh. It carried from there. So that is a big wild card for them where they have been battle tested this year in a way that Pittsburgh hasn't quite been. Although that Open Cup win at home against NYCFC does exist. So like there's games you could look back on in the crucible, the pressures of a situation like this for both teams this year.
Yeah, I mean, great point about the Jägermeister Cup as well, and which teams maybe prioritized it too versus which didn't. But still, once you get that far, it's a trophy. You want to win it, and the experience. It's just a matter of do they have enough in the tank
Yeah.
to sustain a playoff run now after that. You see it in MLS as well. Like some teams can sustain and just have great seasons all around. Sometimes it just depends. I mean, as far as Hartford goes, though, I've been impressed with as some of these, picking up Barry and players like that and having the depth that they have. I think the Hounds rotation has, I think, and you've done this last game, you've done some other games. The rotation, I think they've gotten a little bit more comfortable with where they are. I think having the three wingers, including Eto and Biasi, has been getting most of the starts, but Perrin Barnes got a lot of starts during the season, and that's a position that's going to require a lot of two-way and up and down. And so the Hounds, but then having forward depth with, having Chase Boone as well, and then this is and I always say an X factor player for the Hounds could be Yakison, but again, he's kind of had an up and down year,
Right.
and it hasn't been the player he was even late last season. So just a lot of factors about the rotation and these key players because I've seen so many of these playoff matches where late it's tight, and one guy maybe makes a play or makes a difference, or the fresh legs really do tilt the match.
Yeah, and like you said, there's so many little things, and the rotation has certainly tightened, and you've seen it by Pittsburgh using the same back-to-back starting 11 these last couple of games. It seemed like Rob's got his eye on it, his guy. As long as everybody's healthy, he's got a clear directive in what he wants to do. To your point, though, somebody that I think really is an X factor and a position that never gets any love is Sean Suber because
Yeah.
first of all, he's going to have his hands full with Mishi and Haji coming into his orbit, and Kyle Edwards, mind you, who has a dozen goals for Hartford this year. He gets lost in the shuffle because of the other two big names, but he's firstly going to have his hands full defensively. I believe last I checked, he leads Pittsburgh still in passes or touches. It's up there. Like a lot of
He's
very,
very involved.
yeah,
Yes.
very quietly. He's almost like the center in football, where like he touches the ball in every play. It almost feels like Suber's touching the ball every time Pittsburgh gets the ball. Suber's getting a touch on it. Um, he can play that long ball. He could spray it wide. He can play it through the middle, the line breaking pass. He can get up on set pieces and score, as we've seen. So he does so many things. Um, I don't want to necessarily put this on him because they're different players in terms of how they play, but it's hard not to, for me, look at Suber this year and go back a couple of years to what Arturo was to the group,
Yeah.
and just
Hmm.
that year when he wins, where he's one of the top defensive players in the league, of course. Like that feels like Suber's role. I don't think he's gotten the recognition he deserves for it this year. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll end up on. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think he'll end up on any like first team, second team all leagues. I think there's other center backs
Yeah.
who have gotten that notoriety over him, but he's
Hmm.
the guy that I'm watching as like a real X factor for Pittsburgh in this game Saturday, but also beyond if the run continues.
Well, I have this. I have been watching closely, and I actually looked at the metrics because as a media, we were asking to vote for the Hounds Player of the Year. So I was like, I'm like intangibles versus some of these analytics, and I was really blown away by what I saw in terms of, and I always look at it, but I really looked at it this time across the back line. Yet Rich, Beto, and then Guillaume Vactor. Also, the way they sort of balance each other out.
Yeah.
Vactor, in terms of his defensive contributions, is just near or top of the USL in terms of some of these defensive metrics in terms of like 95%. And Suber and Yetrich are also interesting for center backs. They're among the tops in terms of passing
Right.
stats and getting some of the stuff in terms of getting forward and shot attempts and crosses and things like that, which is interesting because they're all center backs. But and then sort of bailing out what I'm saying, hopefully I'm making sense here, is you saw it on in the Phoenix match. things opened up just a little bit, and Vactor made, I mean, that is that guy in a nutshell. I mean, he makes that play towards the end of the match. I think Phoenix had a breakaway on the right side, and I didn't even see him on the screen or from the view in the press
Right.
box, and he came out of nowhere and snuffed out a chance there that Phoenix had in transition. Um, so I think he's a defensive machine back there. So I see different things, but I also see Suber. Yeah, I think Arturo was like that as well because he came up and he contributed some goals and a couple
Yeah,
games in a row. But he hadn't scored all year. But I think there's just a confidence there with that back line, and I think that those three have enabled Rob Vincent, what you were talking about earlier, about Rob Vincent to be able to maybe give his midfielders a little bit more freedom
for sure.
at least that's what I've seen.
For sure. If they have more freedom, if the wingers have more freedom, you know that those three at the back are going to be there to save the day. And if anything fails with one of those three, then you've got Eric Dick back there who can also just bail you out because he's been fantastic this season. And it's been good the last couple of years to see him find a home for a player who had been prior a journeyman through MLS and through USL. So the equation is there. It's just a matter then of executing, and that's been the conversation all year. I think for Pittsburgh, it's how do you get the most out of Augie? This was a rare year where he didn't hit double figures scoring, and the stat that I used on the air the other day: 4 of the last 5 seasons in USL Championship, he hit double figures in scoring. He didn't get there this year. The lone
Right.
exception in that 4 years out of 5 was 2021, where he had spent most of the year with the Galaxy and MLS before dropping to the USL team to Los Dos. So he only played 12 games, but in those 12 games, he scored 6. So extrapolate that over a full season, he would have easily been in double figures. So how do you get the most out of him? Why haven't you gotten the most out of him this year? Can you get it out of him now when it matters most? Like those are the little questions that could be the difference between another early exit like we've seen in the past or a team that I think has the capability of making a run. Goaltender, check. Back line, check. Leaders and heart and soul players in the midfield and Griffin and Robbie Mertz, check. It's just can you get that last finishing component to it to be a team, to be last year's Rhode Island team. By no means is this year's team stylistically similar to Rhode Island's team last year, but they were a team that in hindsight, you looked at and you said, well, they did check all the boxes and it came together for them. I think Pittsburgh, excuse me, checks all the boxes. It's just, will that last box be checked in the attacking end? Will it all come together at the right time? There's plenty of reason to be excited for a Hounds fan going into this weekend, but there's also plenty of reason to be afraid because you know it's happened in the past and the visions of that Detroit City game loom. And so like there's reason to be excited, but there's also reason to be a little trepidatious about it.
Yeah, I think that the fans, there's a sense of excitement. Also, I think monkey off the back type of
Oh
scenario.
yeah.
I think that's something that, athletes, when they go through off seasons and they train and they go through a season like this and they get to the finish line, for the Hounds to get that home playoff, I think I think that was a pretty significant accomplishment. There is a pretty good relationship, with the fans, with the Steel Army, with the community here, and I think just to be able to get one, at least one, maybe, who knows, things go certain ways, you can
Yeah.
get more, but at least one home playoff match with this team, I think they're going to be pretty determined not to let the fans down. I don't know. That's just my thought.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, it has always seemed like there is a love between the fans and the players, and again, like look, these players try harder than anybody. They didn't want to lose the way they did against Detroit City in 23 in those games. So like to be able to have another chance. So many of these guys on this roster were on that roster, so a little chance at redemption too. Is again, like you said when we started chatting here, like there's so many angles and underlying
Hmm.
storylines to like peel back the onion on this game, and that's one of them too. How many guys on this roster were part of that 2023 team who want to right the ship now for what, Players Shield winning season, high expectations, and then boom, a kid who'd played like 8 professional games just hits a little worm burner and it ends up in the corner and your season's over. Like that
Yep.
that was harsh. And last year you run into the buzzsaw that was Charleston and it is what it is, but like now you're home again and you feel like you have the group again. Like there's a lot of that's going to be weighing on the minds of guys like Danny Griffin and Robbie Mertz and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So, any parting thoughts in terms of maybe players that you're looking out for, or maybe how you feel. You talked at the outset about the contrast of styles, but what do you think might give way more than the other?
It's just a matter for me, and like I don't know the answer to this. We'll find it out
Hmm.
on Saturday, but who plays the game their way?
Hmm.
Neither team necessarily loves the ball. Somebody's got to have possession. Um, Pittsburgh, of course, more defense minded. Hartford, more attack minded. They want to run and gun. Does this turn into Pittsburgh dictating the play, slowing it down, playing at their pace, and forcing Hartford to adapt to that? Does it turn into Hartford stretching the game and opening it up? I simply put, like, I think whoever puts their style and spit on this game wins the game. I don't know that Hartford can play Pittsburgh's way. I don't know that Pittsburgh can play Hartford's way if it becomes a run and gun game. There's also a world in which, there's the natural ebbs and flows of a game, and we split the difference. And, there's 10 minutes played at Hartford's pace, 10 minutes played at Pittsburgh's pace. At that point, it's just who is able to make a play in the box. And then again, just all the layers, you look to usually you say, right, whoever's got the best striker or the most reliable striker, well, they're going to put away their chances and they'll win the game. Well, on one side, you've got Augie Williams, who's been fantastic in this league and is one of the league's all-time leading scorers, and you've got Haji Berry, who's won a Golden Boot and is one of the best scorers that this league has seen. So they both have that. So I genuinely of the entire playoff slate, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on
Hmm.
your podcast and I'm calling the game and I'm trying to split the baby here and be on the fence about it. I genuinely think of what is it the 8 total playoff games we have this weekend. I think this is the most unpredictable. I think you can go down the list pretty much every other game, and there's a pretty strong lean one way or the other. I genuinely have no clue, which is why it's going to be fun to call.
Is the USL staff and some of the team over there, do they all make like predictions and then like post them? Is that
So
happening
I
or?
in years past there has been like a prediction page. They've kept the broadcasters out of it, just of course just to fund the games. But
Neutrality, yeah.
yeah, some of the writers and other people around the league, I believe in years past they put predictions out. I haven't heard whether or not they're going to pick the games this year. I would imagine there would be something. Um, but on that note, like I think if there is something that is released and you see it, just come back to this. Like I think there'll be pretty good agreement on pretty much every other game.
Hmm.
As far as like picking a side, even if it's the quote unquote underdog, like um, what's one off the top of my head? Like I think there'll be a decent crowd of people who side with who side with Phoenix over El Paso in that game. Just
Hmm.
looking at the mirror image of the other 4-5 game,
Right.
where there might be some lean toward the Phoenix side. This game, if there were 10 people picking it, I'd be shocked if it was anything other than 5 Hartford, 5 Pittsburgh.
Right. And I noticed that in this league, ever since, the modern version of this league, those 7, 8, 6 seeds sometimes, they are very, very, very capable on any given day. I think
Oh,
that's happened so many times now that it's just there.
absolutely. I'd have to dig real deep in the notes. I'd
Hmm.
looked this up and we used it last year. I want to say it was for the broadcast of the Hartford Louisville game. If I go back that far, might have been around then. Because I think I was on the call for that game. Uh, every single year, I think since at least 2020, there's
Right.
been at least a 1 or a 2 seed, if not multiple, that have dropped in a given season. So there's always one. Um, so you never know. You just never know. And I'm sure there'll be one again this weekend. I don't know who it's going to be. I bet it's probably not Louisville. I especially after how last year went for them. I think they've
Yeah.
been licking their lips and like, hey, let's not have that happen again. But would anybody be stunned just taking a broader look if the reigning champions beat Tulsa, as great of a season as Tulsa have had? Mind you, those two teams played last week and Tulsa won 3-0. You don't think that's been lingering in the back of the Switchbacks' minds all week?
Yeah.
Like you can look at most of those matchups and find a path to victory for the lower seed. It's gonna be fun. It's all around. It always is. There's always surprises. There's always games that are down to the wire. Like I said, I'd be stunned if you polled 100 people if it wasn't 50-50 on this game. And I'd be stunned if this game is anything but a one-goal game, one way or the other, whether it's, a late winner last 15 or so minutes, whether it's going all the way to penalties. Um, keeping my neutrality, if I was going to give you some sort of prediction on this game without picking a winner to keep my neutrality for the call this weekend, I would say I could genuinely see this game going to penalties. Like that is the type of game this is with these two teams. Where if you
Hmm.
if you told me coming in, there's a high probability of penalties of any specific game again around the whole playoffs. and this was the one that had the highest percent chance, I'd probably agree with that. There's a really good chance this game goes the distance.
And the last time and the only time in the history of Highmark Stadium professional game has gone to penalties is when Brendan Burke's Bethlehem Steel and Pittsburgh Riverhounds went the distance. And not only was that a penalty kick shootout, but I think it went like a 10 or
It was
11
deep. Yeah.
shooters
It,
deep.
it, it all comes
Uh,
full circle since you mentioned that when we first started chatting here. It all comes full circle back to that game.
All right. Well, this is the best time of year, and we'll look forward to your call, and I'll be look forward to being at Highmark Stadium. It'll be a black art. Can you say that in the broadcast? Art.
I'll do it. I will absolutely do it.
My Pittsburghese is terrible. I sort of have this mixed dialect of whatever I am, a hybrid, but I try. My
it's
sons make fun of me.
it's become more popular, of course, with the Pat McAfee show and whatnot. So I think that the general public sphere is more in tune with the at, that will so I will work that in just for you. It's a black at on Saturday.
All right, Yins, have a good day now. I see, I can't do it. It turns into like a southern accent. It's like I can't do it. So I just
Oh
embarrassed
man.
myself. All right, well, Joe, it's been great having you on, and I appreciate all your insights, and I just really look forward to the call on Saturday night.
No, appreciate that. Should be a lot of fun. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, great conversation with Joe Malfa. He's one of the best. He's a pro, and he's a young up and coming broadcaster. So we may be seeing lots of Joe in the years to come, and I look forward to the call on Saturday. If you're not able to make it down to Highmark Stadium, or if you just want to have it on your phone or listen in your ear pods, or in my case, hearing aids. You could listen to the broadcast as well on any device, ESPN Plus, and then of course the Riverhounds will share more information about their broadcast options for Saturday's match. But yeah, that's pretty much wraps it up. But again, thanks for listening and joining me. It's been a crazy busy week already. Lots of soccer in Pittsburgh area. But we will keep you up to date with everything. A couple of notes to be before I sign off in terms of Pittsburgh soccer. Now, we will have also Duquesne women's soccer will be hosting that Saturday. Is going to be crazy because not only do you have the two high school matches in the morning at Highmark, Duquesne women hosting a postseason match for the first time in a while at Rooney Field. So that'll be at 2:30. Pittsburgh Soccer Now's Zach Weiss will be there. The Duquesne men actually play that night as well to wrap up the regular season. Doesn't look like they're going to get into the A10 tournament this year. A little bit of an aberration for Chase Brooks's team, but I think this is a solid program. They'll do well, but we're looking forward to that. And then on Sunday, Colton Qureshi, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, will be out back at Rooney Field. Rooney will be busy this weekend, where we'll see, believe it or not, a Pittsburgh team taking on a Harrisburg team named the City Islanders. But this will be in U.S. Open Cup qualifying. The Steel City FC will take on the Capital City Islanders in the qualifying match, and Colton will be there, and we'll have all of that. Of course, we'll have all the high school stuff from start to finish, starting Wednesday night all the way through Saturday. And then, of course, the PIAA playoffs kickoff too. That will begin next Tuesday. We'll have the brackets on Sunday and go from there. So this is the best time of year. So again, thanks for your support, for all we're doing to help keep you informed and providing coverage of all the things that are going on across the Pittsburgh soccer landscape. Until we meet again, this is John Krysinsky, sounding off on soccer.